Welcome to A Slice of Therapy. This podcast was created with Anchor. And if you've not heard of Anchor, let me explain. It's free. It's a really easy way to make a podcast. And it helps me because I can just do this every day directly into my phone, because there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. So if you fancy making a podcast too, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. So the writer Derek Sivers has a great quote. He says, "If all we needed was information, we'd all be billionaires with abs." It's a great quote, isn't it? If all we needed was information, we'd all be billionaires with abs. There's information everywhere telling you how to get rich and run your own business and lose weight and build muscle and so if all we needed was information, then it's true, isn't it? We would all be billionaires and we'd all have abs. And yet, despite the existence, the preponderance of that information that's out there, we're not, are we? Because what Derek is basically getting to is that it takes more than just information in order to make change. And so what I want to look at today are the three things that get in the way of creating the change that we want. The first one is lack of a clear vision. Many therapies spend so much time looking backwards that they don't necessarily create a really strong, granular, identifiable, very tangible picture of what our destination, of what the change is going to look like. And like going on any journey, and change is, of course, a kind of a journey, we need to know where we're headed to. We need to know where our destination is in order to make sure that we're headed in the right direction. We also need to know what our destination is as well, because we need to recognize that we've arrived. And so going into a very clear picture of what it actually looks like, what it is that we really want, is super important. We might say, for instance, well, I'd like to be healthy, or I'd like to be happy, or I'd like to be in a good relationship. But in actual fact, all of those concepts like health and happiness and being in a good relationship, they do look different from person to person. And so really narrowing this down and getting very specific about what it is that you want is super helpful, because all the information in the world isn't going to help anybody who doesn't know where they're headed to. So that's the first thing why information alone isn't necessarily helpful. The second thing is that there is very often a part of us, in all of us, that isn't completely on board with going on this journey and getting to that destination. While there's a huge amount of motivation within us, which is why we've started, we may have even sought help, say from somebody like myself, which shows a huge amount of motivation in getting started. And crafting the vision will even add to that motivation. Nonetheless, there is often within all of us a very self-protective part that kind of recognises that as unpleasant as and as uncomfortable as where we are now is, it's kind of less of a risk than going on this journey. There'll be a part of us that feels maybe that we don't have the permission or maybe even the safety to go forward. Often the very fact that we're in this place kind of makes sense based on what we've been through. So whatever it is that you're looking to change at the moment, it's often the case that that thing that we're looking to change is in many ways a protective thing. Like if we didn't do that, it would expose another problem. And the classic example of this is the doctor, for instance, who worked with people who were morbidly obese. and managed to help them. Physical doctor, not a therapist in any way, but managed to help them become a healthy weight. And yet 6 months later found that they were all morbidly obese again. And when he discovered what was going on with them, he realised that many of them had suffered abuse as children. And so one of the downsides of having arrived at the destination was that they were suddenly more visible in a way that didn't feel safe to them. Certainly didn't feel as safe as when they were bigger. And so they raced back to where they started from again. And that's a really good example of how being in the place that we're in, no matter how uncomfortable, no matter how we don't like it, change can sometimes feel even more scary. And not just because change can be scary, but because to some extent we are where we are because we're trying to protect ourselves. The final reason why information is not enough is that, of course, we all have a nervous system. And I speak a lot on this podcast about nervous systems. And so what can happen is, just like on any journey faces obstacles, one of those obstacles will be the response of our own nervous system, which when it feels unsafe, and there's that thing, safety again, will respond in certain ways that might obstruct our journey. And so Derek Sivers is right. It's not about just having the right information. Because if we had the right information, and that's all it was about, we'd all be billionaires with abs. So if you have all the information at your fingertips and you're frustrated because you've not actually got to the end result, then it may well be that those are the things that are standing in your way, either a lack of vision or on some level, a lack of safety. And it's both of those that therapy, among other things, can help with. You see, the funny thing about therapy is, for whatever historical reason, it's now viewed as a mental health thing. And I don't see it as a mental health thing at all. I see it as a human condition thing. In many ways, what a therapist is, if you were to re-language it, is just as some people get a sports coach and some people get a business coach and so on. A therapist is just a fancy way of saying an emotional well-being and mindset coach. Maybe it resonates, this idea of really having a very specific vision, or maybe even having some obstacles that can be placed under the umbrella of safety. So if you'd like some help with that, I'm Alun Parry. You can find me at liverpoolpsychotherapy.co.uk. Please share this podcast if you felt it was helpful. You can subscribe to them for free as well, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you prefer videos, go to asliceoftherapy.com and you'll see them all YouTubed there as well. So thanks for listening, and I'll be back again tomorrow with another one.